Hey everyone. So in LandKit 2.0, we've put a lot of attention into areas. And there's a lot of stuff that's not necessarily new, but that is upgraded. But one of the things that is new, and you may think is, that's a little mundane, it's actually kind of amazing. And I'll show you why, which is line work. So a lot of people think, okay, well, line work gets drawn and then you create your areas and your model. But no. In LandKit, you can create things in a different way, and then the line work can come as a byproduct, which is sort of a whole new way of thinking about things. So if we're using the collage, which there's a workflow that kind of focuses a little bit more on collage, and there's a lot of ways to use the collage component. As I move this down, I'll see my line work update here. And it's not updating the hatches, but if I hit bake hatches, it will update that. It's pretty neat. And, each material here is getting pulled in from the areas layer. So I have asphalt and path and paving and green. And those all get, we actually don't even need the topography here for the exercise we're doing. So we have all of that's coming in automatically. And if I draw new things, for example, on a layer, like here, it's going to update. There are different styles for how the line work gets resolved, but the one style I'm looking at here, I'm actually kind of working my way backwards. This is style 3, and this just gets an outline of each area. Pretty straightforward. It's just getting the outline of those areas. It's a great style. The one issue you may run into, and we have to watch out for, is that if you use this style and you have holes within any of your areas, the color and the layer values are going to get thrown off. That's something I need to fix in the next release. It's a very small detail, but holes are a new amazing feature of LandKit, and they should be working in good order in most places. But they are pretty new, so we are discovering a few small things. Now, the next style, going kind of backwards here, is called conservative, and this is style 2. Conservative is going to follow a very similar pattern to what a lot of people are used to. Each boundary between two areas is going to be defined by only one curve, right? So, and then that curve is going to be assigned to the layer that has the smaller amount of surface area over its whole layer typology. So the paths, for example, are being drawn on top of everything because they have the smallest amount of area. If I move them, kind of down, you can see, right, how that kind of updates. But the amazing thing here is all those boundaries are being drawn, and you're not having to draw them. You can manipulate surfaces. You can also do these as shapes. If they don't have holes, every single one of the collage shapes could be a curve. The neat thing about a curve, if I follow this train of thought, if I go to paving and I dupe border, and then I'm going to delete this. It follows all the same logic when it's a closed curve, but the cool thing is that I can grab control points and I can change those, right? So I can update, and it's not updating my hatches, which is confusing. Oh, I know what's happening. I know what's happening. That's my bad. I'm not bringing in curves into this. Okay, there we go. Now it should work. All right. All right. That should work for you in this mini workflow. The mini workflows are, we're making a lot of them, but as I move as I change this curve boundary, so the neat thing here is that you can be shifting your shapes. Your shapes aren't static, right? Where collage sounds like, okay, you have this static shape and you have to move it around. The collage can be way more flexible than that. Some of the layers could have, you know, whole parametrically defined systems that are all layered together. In our case, you know, we just have this simple example. Now, if I go to the next style, this is where things get really interesting. It's all the same logic of the last style, where each boundary is defined by one curve, but in this case, it's adopting both the name of the adjacent areas together. So if I look at Linework and I look at, you know, under here, it has paths plus areas and paving, green plus areas paving. So it's combining the layer names in a strange way. We would want to probably have the layer names coming in a little bit differently. And I can actually fix that here. So if I have my layer name coming in, I can actually replace text, and I'm going to do the layer name, and I'm going to copy the same, the same parent name, and then replace it with nothing. So if I add, plug that in there, and I'm just going to do a quick purge to get rid of any layer names that we don't need. All right, there we go. So we have paths plus paving, green plus paths, green plus paving. Okay, so it defines the difference between each different area type that are joining. So if I select this guy, he's on layer asphalt plus green. So that's the connection between asphalt and green. But that's where all the details for those two things coming together are going to occur. So the cool thing is you can isolate things in that way. That's something that people don't normally do until maybe construction phases, but this is a great way of seeing that stuff early on in the design process if you're trying to measure details for some reason. So the other style here is just kind of a generic style where it's pretty basic. It takes just a gray color for everything except for the outside boundary, and it combines everything into an outside boundary color. So that's the line work, and it's pretty awesome because you can do all this collaging work and you can get line work for free, basically, coming out of that process. And you have all this flexibility, and you can update your plan at any point, and you can change what style, or you could be outputting multiple styles. You could have bake those to a very particular set of layer names, and we'll look into that. So the last piece here is to bake hatches. And I'm going to just delete these old ones and bake. For some reason, didn't want to overwrite. Move this. I think it has to do with the layer names. Yeah, because I changed the layer names. There we go. So bake hatches is a great way of, when you're ready, baking out all your hatches. I wouldn't recommend having this turned on and constantly baking, partly because it's set up a little bit differently than the bake line work. And we're hoping to update the hatches to be more like the line work. We keep learning all these things, and we apply them as we go. So, but it's great. You can get hatches that have holes in them, etc. Now, let's look under the hood and look at this script. We have, we've shown you this sort of Grasshopper panel here on the side and how you can change some of those settings. Let's go over here. So as with a lot of our mini workflows, we are grabbing areas from the areas layers. So we're getting the sub layers using the wildcard expression here, the asterisks. And we're only bringing in breps and now curves. as I showed you earlier. The object details we're getting from that is the layer, the color, and as I showed you earlier, we are removing the area's parent layer, prefix. That way, each layer name is just paths, paving, green, etc. And then we build areas by inputting geometry, layer, and color from the layer name, or from the object details. And then we're doing a collage operation, which, if you haven't seen the collage workflow, it smashes everything down and removes any duplicate geometries and automatically cuts everything out. Then from there, up here in this area, we are creating the line work using our draw area line work component. That has our different styles. This is the slider that's shared here or published to the remote Grasshopper panel. And then we are adding to the layer name, we're adding the prefix line work. And so that makes it so that all of this stuff goes under a parent layer called line work. And then we bake the line work. That is not in the Grasshopper panel because it's just always true. So every time you do anything, it just rebakes that line work. And it's really fast. It's like takes 7 milliseconds with this script. If you had a bigger script, it might take, a little longer, but if you're dealing with a complex script, that's going to be expected. And then for hatches, we're doing a few extra steps because I noticed some things that are, as I said, we really like what's happening with line work and layers, for the new component here. But the bake areas as hatches has a few challenges. So it automatically overwrites, if you have that option selected when you're baking, but it overwrites only layer names that are included already. So if you suddenly have a different, you suddenly don't have geometry from that layer and you go to bake again, it's not going to remove that one material. So if like I had a path hatch and then I removed the path and I baked again, that old path hatch would still be there. A little funky, but that's why I say only bake the hatches when you're ready. But you can always also just delete the old stuff, the old-fashioned way, just delete it. And then there's the way of, so the other thing we have to do is we have to give it new layer names. And so I break down the areas. I use the area stats here. I get the geometry, the layer, and the color, and we just rebuild the areas real quick. So we are, I'm moving them down for the demo purposes so you can see those sort of sitting further down below. So they're sitting lower than the line work, 100 units. And then so that's the geometry being used to create the areas. And then we add a prefix of hatches to make a parent hatch layer that everything sits under for hatches and color. This only triggers whenever we click the button or when we click the button here in the Grasshopper panel. So that is 2D data that you can get from this site design process or collaging process, or really any kind of area setup. You might already just have areas and they're not collaged and you're already doing all your own trimming. That's fine. It's maybe not quite as big of a benefit, but it gives you this byproduct that you can really use and speed up your workflow a lot and hopefully save you a lot of time. So enjoy.